I never thought I'd see the day my own parents would look me in the eyes and tell me I was no longer their daughter. But they did. They threw me out of the house, called me a disgrace, and pretended I didn't exist. And when things got worse, they didn't even flinch. My little girl was burning with fever, and I had nowhere to take her. So I parked my old car behind a gas station and wrapped her in my jacket. For 3 nights straight, I stayed awake listening to her breathe, terrified she'd stop. My parents knew, and they didn't care. They left me for dead, both of us. I told myself I'd survive somehow, but what happened next, I could never have imagined. One morning, I got a call that the man I saved years ago, a man I barely remembered, had died, and in his will, he left everything to me, his companies, his accounts, his properties, his power. But that wasn't the real shock. He also left me a sealed letter with one line on the front. Use this when you're ready to destroy them. Inside was a secret that could send my parents to prison for the rest of their lives. And that's the day my revenge began. I still remember the night everything collapsed. The air felt too cold for late summer, or maybe that was just my nerves shaking. My parents didn't even look me in the eyes when they told me to leave. My mother stared at her phone. My father pretended he was reading the mail. And me? I just stood there holding my daughter, Mia, feeling the weight of her small body while my world cracked open. They told me I had embarrassed the family, that I had brought shame to their name. Their voices were calm, almost rehearsed. My father even spoke to me the way he talked to strangers, cold, polite, detached, like I wasn't his child, like I hadn't spent my entire life bending over backwards for their approval. I begged. I'm not proud of it, but I begged. Mia is sick, I said. She's running a fever. I don't have anywhere to go tonight. My mother didn't blink. You'll figure it out, she said. Then they shut the door. You never forget the sound of your own parents locking you out. It's a sharp click that cuts deeper than any knife. I stood outside for a full minute, hoping they'd open it again, hoping they'd realize how cruel they were being. But the lights went off, and all I heard was silence. So I carried my daughter to the car, the same dented little thing I used to drive to my community college classes. I laid her in the back seat, covered her with my jacket, and tried to convince her it was a little camping adventure. She was too young to understand why Mommy was crying, but old enough to feel something was wrong. That night dragged on forever. Her fever spiked. I kept touching her forehead, counting her breaths, whispering stories to keep her calm while the windows fogged from our breath. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something, but all I could do was hold her and pray she wouldn't get worse. Every few hours, I drove to different parking lots just so security wouldn't notice us. Gas was low. My bank balance was lower. I had maybe $14 left. And the hospital? I couldn't afford to walk through the door. Sometime around 4 a.m., Mia mumbled in her sleep, "Mommy, hurts." I whispered back, "I know, baby. I know. I'm here." The next morning, I swallowed my pride and went back to my parents' house, Mia burning up in my arms. I didn't even want money. I just wanted a safe place for her to rest for a few hours. My father opened the door, saw me, and sighed like I was a stranger selling something he didn't want. I said leave, he grumbled. I begged again. She's sick. Please, just let her rest inside. 2 hours. Please, Dad. He didn't even look at her. You made your choices. Now live with them. Then he shut the door in my face a second time. If you want to know the moment part of me died, it was right then. Not when they disowned me, not when they threw me out, but the moment they looked at a sick child, their granddaughter, and felt nothing. I walked back to the car in the midday heat, and that's when I decided something quietly, somewhere deep in my bones. If I ever got back on my feet, if I ever found a way out of that nightmare, I would never let them touch my life again, ever. But fate had its own twisted plans, and everything changed 2 days later with one phone call. I stayed in that car for hours after the second rejection, too drained to move. The sun climbed higher, turning the inside of the car into an oven. Sweat rolled down my back, but all I cared about was keeping Mia cool. I tore the lining out of my bag to fan her. I cracked the windows even though I was scared someone might notice us. At one point, a couple walked past and glanced inside. The woman frowned with concern, but the man pulled her away quickly, whispering something about not getting involved. That hurt more than it should have. It reminded me that people didn't see us as a mother and a sick child, they saw us as a problem. Around noon, Mia vomited on her blanket, and I had nothing clean to replace it with. I used the spare shirt I always kept in the glove compartment to wipe her face, praying she wouldn't dehydrate. My hands were shaking so badly I could hardly hold her. I remember looking up at the sky and whispering, "Please, just let her get better. I don't care what happens to me." My phone was nearly dead. I didn't even have money for a charger. I sat there staring at the battery icon dropping 15%, 10%, 7, until I finally turned it off to save whatever power was left for emergencies. Around 3 p.m., I drove to the edge of an industrial area where old trucks were parked. One of the drivers saw me crying and offered me a bottle of water. I thanked him and gave it to Mia in tiny sips. The man looked like he wanted to ask questions, but he didn't. He just nodded and walked away. That small kindness almost broke me. I hadn't realized how starved I was for someone to actually care. By the time night fell again, Mia was shivering even though the air was warm. I wrapped her in my arms and held her until her breathing steadied. I was exhausted, my head pounding, eyes heavy, body stiff from sitting upright. But sleep felt dangerous. I kept jolting awake every time she coughed. Then something happened that I still think about sometimes. Around 2 a.m., she reached up with her tiny hand and touched my cheek. "Mommy, are we safe?" she whispered. I forced my voice not to crack. "Yes, baby. Mommy's right here." She believed me, and that belief, her trust in me, was the only thing that kept me from giving up. By the third night, the fever finally started to go down. She slept more peacefully, but I didn't. I stayed awake, staring at her face in the dim streetlight, thinking about how different our lives were supposed to be, about how a parent is supposed to protect their children, not abandon them. And I promised myself again, this time with a fiercer voice inside my head. If life ever gives me one chance to stand again, I will never be powerless like this again. Never. I didn't know that chance was already on its way, not through luck, not through charity, but through a choice I made years earlier, one that I'd forgotten about completely. 2 days later, after another restless night, my phone buzzed unexpectedly. I had forgotten I turned it back on. The screen lit up with an unfamiliar number. At first I ignored it, then it rang again, and again. On the third call, I finally answered, my voice barely functional from exhaustion. "Hello?" A calm male voice responded. "Is this Olivia?" "Yes, who is this?" "This is the office of Attorney Charles Wyndham. I'm calling regarding a matter of inheritance. It concerns a man you helped several years ago." I frowned, certain he dialed the wrong number. "I think you're mistaken. I don't know anyone." "I assure you," he said gently, "he knew you. And he left something behind, something very important." I sat up straighter, heart pounding. What are you talking about?" There was a pause, long, deliberate. "He named you as the sole heir to his empire." I blinked. "What empire?" Another pause. "The Wyndham Group." My breath caught. I knew that name, everyone did. But why me? Why after everything I'd been through? Then the voice added something I'll never forget. "He also left a sealed letter for you, marked for when you're ready to destroy them." A chill ran through me because only one group of people came to mind, my parents. And that's the moment my life changed. Not gradually, not slowly. in one single impossible phone call. I didn't drive anywhere for at least a minute after that call. I just sat there in the silence of that cracked old car, staring at my phone like it was playing a prank on me. My daughter slept lightly in the back seat, her small breaths fogging the window behind her head. Inheritance? Empire? A sealed letter? It felt unreal, impossible. Almost cruel to hear when I was sitting in a parking lot with $14 to my name. I pressed the phone to my ear again. "Can you repeat that?" I whispered. The man on the line, calm, professional, didn't hesitate. "You've been named the sole heir to Mr. Wyndham's estate, his companies, his holdings, his assets, everything. His final instructions were that we locate you immediately upon his passing." I swallowed hard. I don't understand. Why me?" The attorney paused a moment before answering. "Mr. Wyndham wrote a note explaining that you once saved his life. He didn't elaborate, but he made it clear that he owed you more than he could ever express." My mind drifted back years, to a night I hadn't thought about in forever. The night I pulled a man out of a smoking car after an accident on the highway. I hadn't known who he was. He was unconscious, bleeding, barely breathing. I dragged him away from the wreck, called 911, stayed with him until help came. Then life continued. I never heard from him again. And now, he was gone. And somehow, he remembered me. Not with gratitude, not with a thank you card, but with an empire. "Miss," the attorney added gently, "we've been trying to reach you, but your address and numbers were outdated. We finally traced this contact." I laughed under my breath. One of those tired, cracked laughs that isn't really a laugh at all. Of course, the universe waited until I had nothing. "Listen," I said, lowering my voice so I wouldn't wake Mia. "I'm not in a stable place right now. I don't have a home. I don't have transportation besides this car. I have a sick child." He cut in softly. "Mia is included in the file." I froze. "How do you know her name?" "Because Mr. Wyndham knew. He included provisions for her care as well." My throat tightened. Someone cared about my daughter without even knowing her. Someone who wasn't family. Someone who owed me nothing. "Where do I need to go?" I asked. "Come to the Wyndham Legal House downtown. I'll send a car to you." I blinked hard. "A car? Like a taxi?" "No, miss, a company vehicle. Please stay where you are. Don't drive anywhere." I gave him the address of the gas station near the industrial area, the kind of place where you wouldn't even feel safe ordering food. "Someone will be there in 20 minutes, he said. When the call ended, I sat in complete silence, staring forward, trying to breathe. 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, everything could change. I turned in my seat and looked at my daughter. Her fever had gone down, thank God, but she still looked exhausted, cheeks flushed, hair sticking to her forehead. I gently pushed her curls back and whispered, "Mia, things are going to be different now, I promise you. Mommy's got you." My hands were shaking, not from fear, not from exhaustion, but from hope, the first real hope I'd felt in years. 15 minutes later, a black SUV rolled into the parking lot. Not the kind you see on TV shows. This one looked expensive, serious. And when the driver stepped out, he wasn't some ride service guy. He wore a suit, a real one, tailored, clean, company badge on his chest. He approached my car quickly but respectfully. "Are you Olivia?" he asked. I nodded cautiously. He opened the back door of the SUV. "If you'll come with me, miss, we'll take care of everything from here." I hesitated. "What about my things?" He glanced at my car, my beat-up car, like it was a crime scene. "We will retrieve your belongings," he said kindly. "Please just bring your daughter." I scooped Mia into my arms. She stirred but didn't wake. The driver carried my one torn bag. When I stepped into that SUV, the air conditioning hit me first, then the soft leather seats, then the quiet hum of an engine that didn't wheeze or cough. For the first time in days, I felt human, not like trash thrown out by the people who were supposed to love me. As we pulled away from the parking lot, I glanced back at my old car shrinking in the distance, a piece of my life I was ready to let go. On the ride, the driver handed me a sealed envelope. "This was left for you," he said. "You should read it before we arrive." My heart thudded as I opened it. Inside was a single page, handwritten. "Olivia, you saved my life. Now let me save yours. Use the truth inside this envelope only when you are ready. It will protect your daughter, and it will destroy the people who hurt you." And tucked behind that note was a document with names, dates, transactions, signatures, all belonging to the same two people, my parents. I inhaled sharply as my mind reeled. Fraud, tax evasion, property theft, and worst of all, a series of crimes they framed on someone else years ago. The truth was worse than I ever imagined. My parents weren't just cruel, they were criminals, and now I had proof. The kind of proof that could put them behind bars. The car slowed as we approached the city centre. I held the documents tight against my chest, my daughter asleep in my lap, and whispered, "Okay, you wanted me gone. Now watch what I do with the life you tried to ruin." My revenge wasn't just beginning, it was unfolding faster than I could have dreamed. I stared at those documents so long my vision began to blur. Every line I read dragged up memories I had buried, but now they made horrifying sense. There were property deeds my parents claimed they lost, tax statements they insisted the government had mixed up, large unexplained deposits, money that never went through any legal account. And one name kept appearing over and over, Richard Harlow. A man my father once called a family friend, a man who suddenly vanished years ago, a man the police claimed fled the country after being accused of embezzling company funds. A man whose disappearance tore apart another family. But now, staring at the documents, I finally understood. He didn't run. He was framed by my parents. The pieces clicked together like someone snapping a lock open. My parents didn't just disown me, they didn't just abandon me and my daughter. They were terrified. Terrified that one day someone would uncover what they'd done. Terrified that I, who knew them better than anyone, might figure out their secrets. They didn't push me out of their lives because I brought shame. They pushed me out because I was the one person who could expose them. And now, thanks to a man I saved years ago, I had every piece of evidence they'd tried to bury. My chest tightened as I held Mia closer. She shifted in her sleep, her little hand brushing my arm. Completely unaware of how close she had come to growing up under the shadow of monsters. The SUV turned down a smooth, quiet road lined with tall trees. The contrast from the dirty industrial area hit me like a punch. This world, this level of wealth, this level of power. It wasn't just different from the life I lived, it was the opposite. For a moment, I felt out of place, like I didn't belong anywhere near it. But then I remembered sleeping in my car, being thrown out by people who were supposed to protect me, holding my feverish daughter with nothing but a jacket and a prayer. I belonged far more here than I ever did with them. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. "You're handling this better than most," he said softly. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "I don't have the luxury of falling apart," he nodded. "I understand. Just know. Mr. Wyndham chose well." I looked down at the sealed envelope again. Chosen, me. Not for my family name, not for status, not for gain. For something I had done without expecting anything in return. As the SUV pulled into a gated driveway, the metal bars slid open automatically. Security cameras followed us. Guards saluted. A deep ache formed in my chest, as if some part of me recognized what safety was supposed to feel like, and was shocked to finally experience it. The building ahead wasn't just an office. It looked like a fortress made of glass and steel, towering over the city with quiet authority. "This is the Wyndham Legal House," the driver said. "They're waiting for you inside." My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of a new life pressing into my palms. I looked at Mia again, sweaty curls, sleeping peacefully. For the first time in years, I wasn't scared for her future. I was ready to fight for it. The SUV came to a stop, and the driver opened my door. I stepped out, holding my daughter close, clutching the evidence with my free hand. Every part of me felt like a storm gathering strength. The woman they left for dead had walked into an empire they never imagined, and they had no idea what was coming. The lobby of Wyndham Legal House felt unreal. Marble floors, soft golden lighting, a chandelier that looked like it cost more than every apartment I'd ever lived in combined. People in suits moved with purpose. But when they saw me, sleep-deprived, holding a child wrapped in my jacket, they slowed. They didn't judge me. They didn't sneer. They looked concerned. A woman stepped forward immediately. "Miss Olivia, we've been expecting you." Her voice was warm in a way that felt almost foreign. It had been a long time since anyone spoke to me with kindness that wasn't pity. She gestured toward an elevator. "This way, please." The doors opened onto a private floor with only one office at the end of the hallway. The plaque on the door read Charles Wyndham, Executive Suite founder and chairman. My chest tightened. The man whose life I saved, the man I never heard from again. This was his world, and somehow he wanted me to have it. When we entered the office, a distinguished older man stood up from behind a dark wooden desk. His hair was silver, his suit looked hand-stitched, and his eyes softened when they landed on Mia. He stepped forward with calm authority. "Miss Olivia," he greeted, "I'm Attorney Pierce. I served your benefactor for over 30 years. I nodded, suddenly feeling small in my thrift store clothes and tangled hair. He motioned to the chairs in front of him. "Please sit. Your daughter may rest here as well." I lowered Mia gently into the chair beside me. She curled against my arm and continued sleeping. Attorney Pierce opened a leather binder. "I know you're overwhelmed, so I will be as clear as possible. Mr. Wyndham left detailed instructions regarding the distribution of his estate." He slid a document across the desk. "First, he appointed you, solely you, as the successor to all his holdings." My throat tightened again. "All," I whispered. "All," he repeated. "The Wyndham Group, the real estate portfolio, international accounts, and 3 subsidiary companies. You inherit everything." I felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. People like me didn't inherit empires. But Attorney Pierce wasn't finished. "He also established a trust for your daughter's education, health, and future. Unlimited coverage." Unlimited. A word that had never applied to my life. I swallowed hard. Why me? He didn't even know me." Attorney Pierce smiled sadly. "Oh, he knew you. He spoke of you often. Said you were the only person who helped him without expecting anything in return." I blinked. "He remembered that night?" "He never forgot it," Pierce replied. "That accident changed everything for him. But your kindness, he said it restored his faith in humanity." I sat completely still, unsure if I should cry or laugh or collapse. Pierce turned another page. "There is also a personal letter addressed to you, and a packet of documents Mr. Wyndham wanted you to have. I'm aware you've already seen the first portion." My grip tightened on the envelope in my lap. Pierce leaned forward, expression serious. "That evidence you carry is real. Your parents committed multiple financial crimes, fraud, identity theft, property laundering, and they pinned it on another man, Richard Harlow." My pulse jumped, my voice shook. "He didn't disappear voluntarily, did he?" "No," Pierce said quietly. "He was forced to leave the country to avoid prosecution for crimes he didn't commit, crimes your parents orchestrated." My chest ached. All those years my parents lectured me about morality. All those times they called me a disappointment. All the moments they looked down on me. And they were hiding something far darker than I ever knew. Pierce continued. "Mr. Wyndham spent years collecting evidence against them, but he refused to release it while you were still vulnerable. He wanted you to be safe, stable, and independent first." I stared at him. So he waited until after he passed? Yes, Pierce said softly, because he trusted that once you understood your own value, you would know exactly what to do. I sat back slowly, feeling something shift inside me. Not rage, not fear. Power. Real power for the first time in my life. Pierce slid a final folder toward me. This contains everything you need. Proof of every illegal transaction. Names, amounts, dates. Witness statements. Enough to ensure your parents face justice. He paused. But the decision is entirely yours. I looked down at Mia, sleeping peacefully against my arm. Then I looked at the folder. My parents didn't just abandon me, they abandoned her. They left her to suffer. They left her to sleep in a car with a fever while they lived comfortably in the home I grew up in. And now, I had the truth they thought they buried forever. I inhaled slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle deep in my bones. Attorney Pierce, I said quietly, I want to see everything. He nodded once, then he opened the folder, and the first page was a bank record with my father's signature. The second page was a forged document. The third was a photo of my mother leaving a building she lied about ever entering. Page after page, lie after lie, crime after crime, until my entire childhood made perfect, twisted sense. I felt the anger rise, but not the loud kind, the cold kind, the steady kind, the kind that doesn't just want justice, it creates it. When I finally looked up, my voice was steady. Pierce, tell me exactly what needs to happen next. Because the girl they left for dead was no longer crawling back. She was standing up, with an empire behind her, and the perfect weapon in her hands. I didn't leave Pierce's office for hours. We reviewed every file, every recorded conversation, every financial statement. Each page peeled another layer off the lie my childhood was built on. By the time the last folder closed, I didn't recognize the people who raised me, not because I misunderstood them, but because I finally understood them too well. They weren't strict, they weren't disappointed in me, they weren't trying to teach me responsibility. They were hiding behind the image of a perfect family, hiding behind the house with polished floors and forced smiles, hiding behind their carefully curated reputation. They didn't cut me out because I failed. They cut me out because they were afraid of what I might discover. But they never imagined someone else would hand me the full truth. Pierce cleared his throat gently. Miss Olivia, with these documents, you have the power to dismantle everything they built. I took a slow breath. But I don't want to destroy things blindly, I said. I want to do this right. He nodded, almost proud. That is exactly why Mr. Wyndham chose you. He slid a card across the desk. This is your personal contact team. They will assist you with security, housing, transportation, legal matters, and finance. You won't handle anything alone. For a moment, I just stared at the card. A year ago, I couldn't even afford a babysitter. 2 weeks ago, I was sleeping in my car. Now I had a team. I left the office with Mia asleep against my shoulder. The moment the elevator doors opened, I saw the same driver waiting for me. Mom, he said softly, we'll take you home. Home? I asked. Yes, he replied, to the residence prepared for you. The SUV took us through a gated hilltop community. I saw mansions, fountains, manicured lawns, things I only saw on TV, but the house at the end of the road, it didn't feel like a mansion, it felt like a statement. Tall glass windows, soft lights glowing inside. A view overlooking the entire city, a place built not just for luxury, but for protection. The driver carried my bag and walked me inside. I stood in the foyer in complete silence, Mia asleep in my arms. Pierce had told them everything, my situation, my daughter, my injuries, my exhaustion. A woman from the staff approached gently. You're safe here, Miss Olivia. This home is yours, permanently. I didn't know whether to cry or collapse, but I laid Mia in the softest bed she'd ever slept in and watched her breathing calm into peace I hadn't seen in months. She finally slept like a child, not like someone fighting for strength. I walked into the living room and sank onto the velvet couch. For a long moment, I let myself breathe. Really breathe. Not the rushed breaths of fear, not the shaky breaths of survival. Real, full breaths. But the relief didn't last long, because revenge isn't built in quiet moments, it's built in decisions. I picked up my phone, now fully charged thanks to one of the house staff, and typed in my parents' number. My thumb hovered over the call button. But then I stopped. Talking to them wouldn't bring justice, words wouldn't shake them, tears wouldn't guilt them. Only truth would. The truth Pierce handed me, the truth they tried to bury, the truth that could put them in prison. I turned to the documents again, my father's account trail, my mother's falsified signatures, the fraudulent property transfers, the lie that ruined a man's life. Everything was there. "Mommy," I turned to see Mia standing in the doorway, still in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Her little voice pulled everything into focus. "Are we safe now?" I walked to her, picked her up, and held her close. "Yes," I whispered, "we're safe, and no one will ever hurt us again." For the first time, I pictured a future. Not the kind you daydream about. A real one, a home, school for Mia, stability, a life I wasn't ashamed of. But I also pictured something else. My parents' faces when they realized the daughter they pushed away, the daughter they mocked, the daughter they treated like nothing was the one person capable of ending everything they'd built on lies. Pierce had told me to take time to think, but I had done enough thinking for one lifetime. It was time to act. I called Pierce. "Tomorrow," I said, "let's begin." He understood instantly. Justice wasn't knocking on my parents' door yet, but it was walking up the driveway. The next morning, I woke up earlier than I had in weeks. Not because I was anxious, but because I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. I stood in the kitchen of my new home, watching Mia eat cereal at a table bigger than the entire living room of my last apartment. Her cheeks had color again. Her fever was gone. She was humming to herself, carefree, safe, warm. That alone made everything worth it. At 8 sharp, Pierce arrived at my door with a binder under his arm and a calm determination in his eyes. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm done running." We sat in my living room as he laid everything out. "Your parents have committed enough crimes to trigger a full investigation," Pierce explained. "But this isn't about revenge alone. It's about justice and about protecting you and your daughter permanently." He handed me the final document. "All it takes is your signature." I stared at it, thinking about everything my parents had done, throwing me out, ignoring Mia's sickness, refusing to open the door twice, watching me fall and turning their backs. They didn't just fail me, they failed their granddaughter. They failed their own humanity. I picked up the pen, but before I signed, I asked the question that had been haunting me. "Pierce, what happens to them after this?" He didn't sugarcoat it. "There will be a full audit. Investigators will seize the accounts. If the evidence holds, they'll face charges. Prison time is likely." I nodded slowly. "This isn't about punishing them because they hurt me," I said quietly. "This is about stopping them from hurting anyone else again." He met my eyes and gave a small, respectful nod. "That's exactly what Mr. Wyndham wanted you to realize." I took a breath, steady, confident. Then I signed. The sound of the pen scratching across the paper felt like a door closing behind me, and another one opening ahead. Pierce stood. "We'll take care of the rest. You don't need to be involved in the process." But I shook my head. "I want to see them one last time. Not to scream, not to beg, not to explain, just to show them what they threw away." The confrontation. Pierce arranged a meeting under the pretense of a family mediation. My parents arrived early, confused, irritated, trying to look respectable. When I walked into the room, their expressions shifted instantly. My mother's jaw dropped. My father blinked like I was a ghost. They both took in everything: my clean clothes, the calm way I carried myself, the quiet confidence I never had growing up. And Mia, healthy, holding my hand. My mother stepped forward. "Olivia, where have you been? We were worried." "No," I said gently but firmly. "You weren't." My father's face tightened. "We didn't know how to reach you." "You didn't try." They opened their mouths to defend themselves, to twist the story, to make me doubt my memory the way they always did. But for the first time, I didn't feel small around them. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel like a child begging for a place at their table. I felt powerful. I laid the folder on the table between us. They looked down, their faces drained of color. My mother stumbled back. My father grabbed the edge of the table like he needed help standing. You don't understand," my father stuttered. "No," I said quietly. "I understand everything now." My mother shook her head frantically. "You can't do this to us. We're family." Family. The word stung for a moment, then faded. "You left me and my daughter sleeping in a car," I said. "You left us with nothing, no home, no support, not even compassion." I took Mia's hand and walked toward the door. "But don't worry," I added without turning back. "I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourselves." And I stepped out. No shouting, no crying, no dramatic warning. Just the truth, finally free. Pierce closed the door behind me and nodded. "It's done," he said. And as I walked Mia to the car, she squeezed my hand and said one word. "Mommy." "Yes, baby?" "I like our new life." A tear slid down my cheek, not from pain but from relief. "Me too," I whispered. "Me too." Because for the first time ever, our life wasn't defined by what my parents did to us. It was defined by what I chose next. And I chose peace. I chose justice. I chose a future where my daughter would never doubt her worth. And the people who left me for dead would finally answer for the things they buried. If you made it to the end of this story, thanks for being here. There are plenty more twists, betrayals, and comebacks on the way, so stick around. Go ahead and hit subscribe before you go. Don't miss the next one.